That's where you take the hypervigilance that was once just a survival strategy and apply it in a proactive way.
In every career I have, the things they list off is like, you're really good at this. Like, these are your superpowers. I'm like, they're kind of my traumas too. Like,
Right.
Welcome to Recovery Cast, where we share real stories about life in mental health and addiction recovery. I'm Brittany Baynard, and today's guest is Alyson Stoner. You may know Alyson from their childhood roles in Cheaper by the Dozen, Step Up, Camp Rock, and Phineas and Ferb. But after the immense toll of 80-hour work weeks and taking on financial responsibilities as a child, in addition to the pressure to lean on disordered eating to secure jobs, and the long-lasting effects of being sexualized and controlled as a young performer, Alyson stepped away to become a certified mental health practitioner, policy advocate, and is now the founder of Movement Genius, a digital platform that provides therapist-led content to support well-being. Today, Alyson has co-designed Artist Well-Being Essentials, a course for young performers and their families to help them pursue arts in a healthier, sustainable way. Alyson is also a mental health coordinator for film productions. Most recently, they've become a New York Times best-selling author for their memoir, Semi-Well-Adjusted, Despite Literally Everything. We talk all about that and more. Here we go. Alyson, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, it is an absolute pleasure. I cannot wait to get into this so rich conversation. But before we start, I would love to know, when somebody hears your story, what are you hoping they take away from it?
Ooh. I've been thinking about this recently. It seems like I either hope that I'm presenting a mirror to reflect back a part of themselves that they can further explore, or I'm presenting a window into an experience that they themselves don't have, but can learn about in a way that hopefully humanizes people and allows us to understand each other better. So either a mirror or a window.
Yes, but both of those things brings connection, and I really appreciate that. Yeah, it sounds like you really want other people to feel seen and heard.
Yes, indeed. And I think it's just so easy to misunderstand each other when there's a screen between us.
Yeah.
We get to easily project lots of preconceived notions.
Yes.
So I think having a conversation like this, longer form, where you can drop in, the invitation is to feel like you're in the room with us.
Yes.
And even though we can't hear your voice, we want to feel like three-dimensional humans.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. So let's get into it. And first, I just want to say this is incredible. This is a piece of magic that you've put into this world.
Thank you.
I finished it this week. It was
layered.
Oh my goodness. There was times where and then we get like an age check and I'm like, they're just 11. They're just, and then we get to a part, I'm like, and now they're only 17, but experiencing so much, so much. Thank you for your vulnerability and openness in that. It's absolutely amazing.
I appreciate that. And there's a reason that it's called Semi-Well-Adjusted and not like perfect.
I did it. Nailed it. Yeah. No. And that's perfect. That is a perfect title for it.
It feels like the unofficial mood of 2025, I think.
Oh my gosh. Yes. That'll be my 2025 quote.
Right.
Yes. Okay. So, and you've written powerfully in this book about the early pressures and spotlight. Looking back, what do you most remember about the transition from your childhood to suddenly becoming a brand in Hollywood?
Well, I think it could be helpful to lay out the context for the conversation. And some of these things will relate to all childhoods, and then some of these will be specific to the industry. So a young child is still just getting their first map of the world, right? So any experiences that are repeated at that time become the norm.
Yeah.
And then for better and worse. And then we also at younger ages don't have our own sense of identity formed yet. So we're largely just absorbing messages, modeling what we see around us, trying to get our basic needs met. So, Many of us who are kind of people pleasers by nature are just complying with what the adults are asking.
We're tofu in essence.
Yes, there you go. And so as a young performer, if you don't have that sense of identity formed yet, but you're playing lots of characters, sometimes it can be quite confusing, the blurred lines of, is this my own thought or was this the character's thought? And at the time growing up, I didn't have any tools presented to cope with any of these things. Now, another aspect of childhood relates to the importance of having some kind of basic structure to your life, enough consistency that there's some reliability that after, a temporary stressor happens, you can kind of
the
release
safety part
and return hopefully to a safe home, though not all of us have experienced that. And then another aspect is having safe, attuned caregivers or folks around who you can trust. And when you overlay all of these variables onto growing up in the industry, you see that the industry flips all of these on its head.
Yeah.
So, for example, instead of being at the same school or bonding with kids, I'm now pulled out of school and working 80-hour work weeks on different sets and doing different training, and no 2 days are the same. So out the window routine. And then having attuned, safe caregivers. Well, if you're a child who's a brand, you're now actually not only sometimes financially responsible for a team of adults, but these adults are on your payroll. So it's not exactly this safe, trustworthy space. There's money involved. Then you enter the public eye, and instead of having, a decent amount of privacy where you can just return home and not have cameras on you, now you're dealing with public criticism, even though you're like 8 or 9 years old. So all of that as the first map of the world really, I think, implicitly led to a few key shifts in how I understood myself. I did not have language for it at the time, but looking back, I see what was happening a bit more clearly. One of the shifts is that I came to know my body, my mind and body, as an object to fix or a project to complete, because I was the product. So for auditions or performances or public criticism, I constantly was just thinking, how can I modify myself, as opposed to thinking about like, what are my human basic needs and listening to those needs. So it became a tool more than anything. And then there was this idea of making myself fully available and accessible to everyone at all times.
At such a young age.
For whatever was asked of me. So a deep lack of boundaries. And over time, I can see how that was a theme throughout my childhood and even into adulthood, where I'm so quick to just say yes to everything and to overlook if it's even okay for my health and well-being. Which I know we'll talk a lot about now is connected to all these coping strategies and challenges that ended up emerging.
And at that age and in that environment, when I was reading through your book, a lot of things dawned on me that I felt like it's obvious, but like it's a subjective, everybody kind of has their own opinion in that environment. So while one thing might be held to be the goal and the standard here, it might switch completely the next day. And as a child, you're having to switch that fast. That seems too much for anybody, let alone a child. And then another part was having to experience or turn your mind into a place for these roles as well at a young age. Roles that are movies that would be seen by adults, but having children in them that, whether it be you or somebody else as a child that has to put their mind in that frame of thought, were there protections there for you when you had to try out or audition for those roles?
Well, you're bringing up a great point, which is that performing arts, Hollywood, it's an industry that was designed by and for adults. And so there's an assumption that the adult coming into the workplace can make these creative choices about what process they need to do to get into and out of character. But for a child, if you're not proactively presenting techniques or providing care on set, you do end up having young people who are reenacting these highly traumatizing scenes and not differentiating between fantasy and reality. And I have too many unfortunate examples from families who have come to me now that I'm a mental health practitioner and I speak about this, saying we were on set and, you know, this person is playing a villain. And from the moment we did this scene, my child can no longer sleep in their own room. They're terrified of this person and we have to work on this job for 2 more months. And they didn't do simple things like taking a moment before that scene to establish rapport between the child and the actor. Or to think about all of these different ways we can prepare a family in advance and let them know, is this actually a job that you would sign up for if you knew that this was going to be a part of it? So now that I'm a mental health coordinator for productions, these are the very things that we're thinking about proactively that are unique to working in this industry. Just like if you were on a construction site, there are going to be physical hazards that I, as an actor, am not going to think to anticipate. But the experts will know what to look out for. Well, now with lived experience and some training, we're able to say, oh, these are the details that can make a more supportive set overall for people. So we don't keep seeing the same crises happening, especially for young people who follow what I call a pattern of the toddler to trainwreck pipeline.
Oh, that was my next question.
Teed you up?
Yes. Thanks. Can you explain the toddler to trainwreck pipeline?
Yes. So this is a term that I use to describe this very common and repeated spiral that we as audiences witness of young performers, but really it could be young athletes, young students, high-performing children in high-demand environments who perhaps have an early peak of some sort and then seem to have some kind of downward spiral. It could be financial exploitation. It could be some peers who have been incarcerated. It could be folks who are dealing with severe mental health challenges and some who end up dying by suicide or other really unfortunate, tragic means. And so what I noticed is that I took a step back and thought, if this is happening repeatedly, what are we missing when we watch all of these documentaries? Because it doesn't seem to be enough for us to say that these things are happening. And so I started analyzing media culture, industry protocols, child labor laws, all of these different fields. And I recognized, there are some major systemic variables that are not being addressed. But if we address them, we could actually intervene. We can prevent this. It does not have to be this way. So I used that term to draw that pipeline out for people. And in my book, Semi-Well-Adjusted, you get to see this pipeline unfolding through all of my experiences. And I didn't get out unscathed, but I'm grateful that I started therapy super young and that I eventually was like, I don't think I can do this anymore. And in that pivot, it allowed me to, try a new career and train up to be a mental health practitioner who can talk about these things through a very different lens than just the performer being like, it's overwhelming, help.
Yes. I really appreciate that. I have seen you speak previously. And one thing I really appreciated was I appreciate anybody who can stand up and be the person that they needed when they were younger. And that's all I heard. I heard somebody that's like really done the work to take a step back and not only look at how it affected their own life, but how it could potentially and how it currently is affecting other people's lives. And then how can we fix it? Like,
Right.
what are the tools that we can give other people so it doesn't have to continue?
Right.
That it was a wonderful time to listen to you speak about that.
Thank you. If I can quickly build on
yes.
that, actually.
Yes, please.
I think healing and recovery obviously look different for different people. And for some, I commend them for knowing that when they made peace with their experience in the industry, the best thing for them to do was to walk away and to never engage with the industry again. And then for another peer of mine, they recognized that when they immediately tried to turn their pain and healing journey into something purposeful on sets, that they were still too close to their recovery or early recovery stages, that it was just kind of re-traumatizing themselves and keeping them in a cycle. And so I think there's, wisdom and discernment that can be developed over time for us to realize, like, what's the best path for me in this? And so I didn't necessarily want to come forward and keep talking about it, but I did feel the part of me that was like, okay, you've been processing this for 20 years, so you do have some distance from it. And before you go, if it feels like you're leaving someone hanging by not sharing this, then maybe this is yours to do. So I just want to honor that recovery can look different. And for some, it's going to be just step away and never turn back. And for others, it might be, okay, how do I give a hand to the, next person and help pull them out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone's got their own path. It's definitely not a one size fits all type thing.
No.
So I'd like to take it back when you were a teen and kind of hear about how disordered eating and anxiety and what sounded like kind of perfectionism or maybe people pleasing. I was like trying to differentiate the two in there while reading more about you. How did that affect your daily life and like where did that show up?
So what comes to mind when we name these strategies of managing stress is that they were responses to really extreme and bizarre circumstances. So, diet and fitness culture alone can be enough to spark insecurities and body image challenges. When you're the child who's asked to represent the standard, and your livelihood depends on you adhering to the standard, and you still don't have a map of the world or an identity of your own, these beauty and gender norms shape you before you've even solidified a sense of self.
It like creates its own baseline for you.
Right. So they were quite severe. The expectations on being able to get through 10-hour dance rehearsals. And it amazed me that many of the athletes would do the rehearsal, but not consider that the workout. Then they would do their training on top of the rehearsal. And they're moving for maybe 12, 14 hours a day. Wow. And of course, as a young person, your body's developing. And so you start to see these areas where my development was stunted. And I wonder, how would I have, how would my body have developed had I gotten to sleep and, nourished myself differently? But I name this to say that, these were reactions and fairly natural and understandable responses to all of these circumstances feeling like too much, too soon, too intense. And I recognize now how much I was in survival mode, and the anxiety didn't just come from, wanting to nail the line. That was its own pressure. But then we had these other fears that the public didn't see, things like dealing with stalkers and kidnapping plots, and not really knowing if when you left your home, you were physically safe, or maybe there'd be a camera filming you, or maybe someone would post something about you online. There was just such a lack of control and agency over my sense of self. So I think, the anxiety, the eating disorders, those were my unconscious attempts at trying to keep it all together and moving forward. And also kind of stuffing down things that I didn't have time or space to feel because it would have interfered with the job. And I know that many people in their own ways can relate to feeling like it's so much to be human and it's never the right time for things to be overwhelming.
Right. And if you stop to take care of yourself, like everything good might crumble and go away. And how are you supposed to keep your life going if you take care of yourself?
Right.
Yep. Feel that very much so.
Yeah. And these very real consequences that could affect, the stability you have financially or maybe, your relationship is holding on by a thread and it's because you're bending over backwards for it. So if you stopped bending over backwards, what would that do to the relationship?
Right. Not thinking about what the other person,
And all the while absorbing the impact internally. And as a kid, I truly just had never even heard the term mental health, had never heard the term mind body tool, stress management, to know, you have to learn how to process, express, and release that experience. Otherwise, it's going to start compounding and leading to these aches and pains and coping strategies.
What was like the capacity of mental health assistance on sets?
At the time, I did not have any mental health support. Now there are coordinators, which is a sign of progress. But at the time, I think when you picture creative spaces that are focused on telling the story, I think usually the priority is trying to make it as juicy and compelling as possible and not realizing that these are real humans who are living this out. So there was a stark lack of protocols that we're now, shifting, but
that's good.
And it's not just for the actors, right? Because think about a crew member who shows up to set and has no idea the scenes that they're setting up the lights for. And now they're holding a light in place and it's something that maybe they experienced and it's reminding them of their own past pain. Or if you're an editor who has to select the most intense version of a scene to cut together and you're in a dark editing bay for 8 to 10 hours straight. You alone looking at graphic images.
Every aspect of it, I'm like, why didn't I think of that part too? Oh my goodness.
But also the audience at home. Like what happens when we watch so much material with violence and portrayals of challenging subjects that we're just, the only thing we can do by now is become desensitized or to fearful. Dissociate or fearful. So thinking proactively about, media consumption and storytelling so that it can be done more ethically for everyone, including people at home, I think is something that I have a big passion for.
When you were a kid, in the day-to-day on set, you are, I feel like, trying to keep it together in an adult atmosphere, but not a lot of assistance or tools given at that time. How do you cope with things, or how are you internalizing the things that are happening around you at that time?
At that time, I have to be honest, the pace of the schedule is such breakneck speed. And it's so many last minute changes that I think it's almost like you don't have time to really make decisions with any conscious reasoning. It's a lot of yes and. Okay, yes. And I can do that too. Yes. And we can adjust this way. So I think the impact was, it kind of led to this constant shape shifting, which to a degree is actually a great skill to have, to be able to be adaptive and flexible. It's when it becomes the only mode and there is nothing that you can rely on that you end up seeing that imbalance. So I think it was the speed of it all and the highs too. Like we have to name that being on a stage in front of, let's say, 20,000 people, the adrenaline rush alone can simulate such a palpable high in the body that it's only natural after you get home post-tour for your body to recalibrate by having quite a dip. And no one tells you before you go on tour that most people, crew included, will have a post-tour depressive period. And your body's trying to equalize.
Yeah, you're coming back from something pretty intense.
And you no longer have that huge burst that you've had every single night.
Those dopamine hits aren't coming as regularly as before.
Right. So I think that too, as a child, I didn't realize what was happening, but I was developing that sort of addictive high pattern.
Okay.
And so even when I wasn't booking work anymore or as regularly, I would find other things to do that would give me that same spike.
Yeah.
But I had no idea that's what I was doing.
Okay. And it was at 17 then you decided to go into treatment for disordered eating. Were you going in specifically for disordered eating, or was it like, I'm exhausted, I need to just like be away for a little bit?
I wish I would have thought that naming exhaustion was a worthwhile reason to get help, because it is. At the time, it was that my eating disorders had really taken control of.
You were
every day
trying out for Hunger Games at that time.
Yes.
Yes. Just rigorously exercising constantly. It took a big toll on your body.
And this was actually already a few years into me attempting to be in recovery.
Oh, okay.
So I had made several attempts in a variety of ways, seeking some support online, alone, trying to work with a therapist, trying to meet with a dietitian, but I was still living a life that was going 150 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And it really just reached a point where I knew, okay, this audition is going to be my last sort of Hail Mary. And depending on what happens, either I'll book the job and I'll have a paycheck that allows me to pay for a nutritionist so that I can do this in a healthier, more sustainable way.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to feel the brunt of the rejection, but I need to get serious about creating some kind of break where I can address this at a slower speed. And so I initially went into treatment thinking, I'm just going to go in there, repair my instrument, and then get back out in the game.
They're like, bye.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like, all right, you're good. Like a little pit crew, right? Like I'm just going to go in. Looks good. All right, back 150 miles an hour. And it wasn't until 3 months into treatment that I had my first experience of a steady, structured schedule, adults who weren't on my payroll and who were actually invested in my human development. Imagine. Wow.
What a concept.
Yeah. And who were asking questions about like, well, what do you want for your life? And I was like, wow, I've never thought about that. So it was like beginning to unravel all these deeper changes that I would want to make.
What was that first day like in treatment for you? What is going through your head?
Oh, well, obviously different kinds of addiction and mental health challenges have different symptoms and experiences for people. With food-related and exercise-related behaviors, there can still be a sense of withdrawal. You know, there are chemical shifts when engaging with food as a substance in that way.
Okay.
And then with exercise, you know, if I'm depending on that to manage my anxiety, I put it in quotes because it can be that. And sometimes in other ways, it can shift into something that is not actually useful. For me, the fact that I had to endure one full day without all of these things I had come to depend on, wow, it felt like my body was on fire, you know, and I wanted to be able to change what I was feeling as quickly as possible with the things that I had been relying on. And so the first day felt like a year. And it wasn't until maybe closer to when I was returning home that I was like, okay, it's still going to be a practice every day, but I can at least experience what 1 hour feels like with a little more ease. And then over time it was, whoa, I can't believe I got through a day.
Yeah.
I mean, it took a while to get there for me, but like, whoa. And it was that moment when you already started living the next day and you realized, oh, I didn't even think about getting through yesterday.
Hours.
Yes.
It's just the days now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, but that first one is, wow, it can be.
Because it doesn't get easier. Like when you just decide I want to get better, boom. No, it's like it gets really, really hard before anything gets easier because you kind of have to face your stuff then.
And if you are leaning on some patterns and behaviors, but you don't yet have replacements for them,
right?
Or you're trying to learn how to flex a new muscle, then it can feel so clunky.
Yes, because there's still something I need to do with this feeling inside. I have to put it somewhere. I have to do something.
Right.
What are the tools that you found in treatment? Where did you put it? What did you do?
Yeah. So I think, the specialists there really were able to see what might benefit each person. And I think they could see just how stuck in my head I was. I was so disconnected from my body. And so we focused first on cognitive behavioral therapy techniques, things that would help me reframe the thoughts. And I remember specifically, we were assigned to make trigger cards where we would proactively begin to assess what are the moments throughout the day, what are the relationships, what are the life events that seem to activate this kind of thought or urge. And then what do we do typically, or we would frame it as historically, we once did these things to signal to the brain, oh yeah, we're no longer doing that thing.
That's the old way.
Right. And then now what are some replacement strategies for this particular trigger? Not just broadly saying, yeah, maybe I'll use a skill, but getting so specific. And those I carried around with me, and I had to refer to them multiple times a day.
Hey, but that's okay. If it's working, it's working. That's awesome.
So, and at first it was like, wow, if you used it once a day, even if the other 8 times you still kind of figuring it out.
Yeah.
Great. You used it once, So the trigger cards were really helpful. And, the simple but powerful tool of catching the thought as it happens, challenging the truth of it, and changing it in real time made a massive difference. When I got out of treatment and was re-engaging with life, where my body had to feel all of the stressors of my everyday environment, that's when I shifted to somatic tools.
Okay.
How am I going to feel this discomfort and not just want to run away from it?
Speak more on that, because like I'm working on stuff, but like it's the sitting there with things. It's the meditation. It's like people like meditate. Okay, how do I get to that point though? Because there's too much in here.
Yes. So it's interesting that you bring up meditation, because I think when we're introduced to meditation, especially in Western contexts, it's more so delivered as this mindful practice of emptying your mind as if you're not going to have any thoughts, when a lot of forms of meditation are actually the practice of learning how to be with what is there. And then there are just so many different versions of meditative practice. But working with a somatic psychotherapist, she recognized, because I had quite a bit of experiences that would fall under the category of trauma, that this process was going to have to be pretty slow and steady. And that if I actually tried to push myself too far, it would only be ultimately counterproductive, because my body would resist it all the more and say, it's not safe yet to dig in here, especially if in a therapy session, you feel like you're being forced to dig into it. So a lot of it was learning to just accept that if all I can do today is notice that when you asked me about my friend, my hand formed into an angry fist, and that's as far as we got. And I think something that she was employing, I didn't know at the time, but now as a practitioner, I'm like, wow, yeah, she was good. Was the concept of titration, which if you think about, as my supervisor says, if we're in a pot of hot water and these stressors lead us to start feeling like we're about to boil.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what are these small techniques we can use in the moment to dial down the heat, to titrate the experience so we're back to a manageable sense of safety, comfort, so that we don't overdo it and boil over.
Okay, finding my levers.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So we did a lot of back and forth where, if she asked scale of 0 to 10 and I started reaching a 10, but we still had a whole session to go, she'd be like, okay, let's dial that down and shift gears for a moment. Think about something that feels safe and comforting. And then when we're ready, all right, let's dip our toes back in here. And sometimes you have to be that patient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Something that I was thinking about while reading your book was when it comes to disordered eating and over-exercising, when I think about other people struggling with addictions, when you become sober with alcohol and drugs, you can make a lot of steps to completely stay clear of those things. When it comes to eating and working out and being active, those are things that are still incorporated in your daily life. What is the process? I guess not what's the process, but what are some tools that you use to remember that balance? Yeah, I don't even know if there's a question there. It was just one of those things I thought of. I was like, you can't run away from it. You can't run away from eating and being active. Those are things you need in your life.
And not only need, but when embodied in a way that's healthful, are actually necessary.
Yeah.
They promote well-being. They can be deeply nourishing. Yes, that was frustrating in treatment because I did just want to quit cold turkey and I couldn't. And I do remember one day a therapist sharing, recovery is something you're going to have to choose every day for the rest of your life. And at the time, it actually just felt kind of discouraging and overwhelming. I was like, I want to close the chapter and move on, not knowing that eventually recovery could feel like something is more in the past. But for me, it became a deeper invitation to shift my entire paradigm around food and exercise. So before, a lot of it was either performance driven or outcome driven. And now it's more, okay, this is process oriented. What fuel do I need to do the things that I'm expecting my body to do today? And what kind of rest and recovery do I need to be able to do this sustainably? Yeah. So it's less about push yourself to the limit and more, if I listen, then I can actually feel more balanced and show up in the way that I'm hoping to. Yeah. But there were very specific mantras, one related to food for me that continues to be helpful. Sometimes when I hit a super stressful moment, like right now with the book campaign, I was anticipating, I wonder how my relationship to food and exercise will be affected now that I'm revisiting all of my old trauma in every interview. And so I proactively reminded myself of some of the mantras I used 10 plus years ago. One of them, for me, that has been helpful is food is neither friend nor foe. It is just fuel. And for me, maybe that's unhelpful for someone else, but for me, as someone who's both restricted food out of fear and indulged in food for comfort, I needed to remember in and of itself, it's a neutral. It's a neutral thing. And that intensity, that's something I can manage in my own mind and body as I relate to it. But it does not have the power that sometimes I assigned to it. Growing up.
Yes, the neutrality of it.
Yes.
When do you think you first realized that you not only needed personal recovery, but maybe recovery from Hollywood itself?
Okay, this is a little bit of a I'm going to speak in drafts, as my friend says.
Yes.
So this may not be very polished, but
This podcast is brought to you by Recovery.com. Today, we've talked with Alyson about a number of serious issues, from disordered eating to addiction and so much more. And we want to acknowledge that you or someone you love might be struggling too. Recovery.com is a place where anyone can find mental health or addiction treatment options specific to them. You can filter by location, insurance, levels of care, and so much more. Recovery.com is the best place to find mental health or addiction treatment for anyone, anywhere.
I do remember, due to sort of the family matters happening and experiencing abuse at home, and unknowingly recreating that in my early romantic relationships. I had an early romantic relationship that pretty categorically just fit the cycle of abuse. And when I ended up going online to learn about that, I had this moment where my mind went, if you replace that person's name with Hollywood, this actually feels really reminiscent of this kind of like initial love bombing of encouragement and praise, then sort of the breadcrumbing or like some kind of moment of break, deep rejection, hostility from fans or critics or whatever. And then the breadcrumbing of like, well, maybe I'll give you another chance if you blah, blah, blah. It's like, wait a second. I'm doing this pattern in dance in every area of my life.
Yeah.
But I still felt stuck in the industry because how else was I going to make money? It was the only thing I knew at the time. So I didn't feel ready to let go yet, but I did start having those moments of conscious awareness, like, oh, this is quite a disempowered version of being a performer. If I'm going to be here, I'm going to need to learn a different way of going about this.
Right.
So I eventually did.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I feel like you do such an amazing job, kind of like hindsight, retrospective, now with all of this, like the resources and knowledge that you've gained, but you're still thriving here, which is amazing. So you haven't been deterred because like you said, kind of when we started, like there's people like, nope, bye. I'm going to go bake cookies or something. And there's people like, you know what? I can feel it. I feel that I am called here. Like what keeps you called?
Ooh, well, I'll be honest.
Yes.
Some of it is not necessarily a calling. Some of it is a contract.
Okay. Yep.
So I do need to fulfill some of the contracts. That are still positive experiences, but contracts nonetheless.
I mean, I learned all about some contracts. I was like, holy cow, 7 years? 7 years on pilots?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
That's wild.
Sometimes longer.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. But beyond that, now that I'm trained to be a coordinator for sets, it allows me to be in conversation with people on set and to just surface things.
Yeah.
Like, hey, have you ever thought about something like providing a content note on the call sheet in the morning? If we're going to do do you have any upcoming scenes that are really intense? What if you add a note to the call sheet just so the cast and crew know, oh, this day is going to be a little heavier.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's going to be a coordinator available if I want to talk to them during lunch. Cool. Like, I think that advocacy part is what I'm most excited about.
Yeah.
And because I've been a performer, I do feel like, you just know you can read the cues from fellow artists and know like, oh, I can see what's happening. Let me check in and see if what I'm perceiving is the support that they might actually want and need.
Yes. I feel like you would be amazing at that. Just learning some about you in your memoir, I feel like you are very receptive. And whether it be for protection or just in the environment that you're in, you notice the things and you might just be like a few steps ahead of other people, which is why you would be really, really great at this.
And that's where you take the hypervigilance that was once just a survival strategy and apply it in a proactive way.
In every career I have, the things they list off is like, you're really good at this. Like, these are your superpowers. I'm like, they're kind of my traumas too. Like,
I'm like, different side of the same coin.
It's like, I'm just harnessing my things for good now.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And how beautiful if you're able to step into it in that way. And it can show that like, oh, these can be skills.
Yeah.
And they can give you a really unique perspective. You can see parts of a problem that other people haven't seen. You can anticipate ways to support loved ones when they end up going through something similar that someone who doesn't have the lived experience isn't thinking about. So it can become a superpower.
Yeah.
But also you don't have to then become the martyr for the cause either.
Yeah.
You can find your balance of being like, okay, this is useful, but also
yes.
pick a time and place.
What tools do you use to find that balance then? Because sometimes I feel like you can feel all of this and you're like, I need to fix everything right now. Everything's going crazy. Like, why isn't everyone freaking out with me? Let's go. How do you keep yourself from doing that head spinny thing?
Okay, this is how I feel when, speaking in drafts again, this is what comes up for me when I hear families describe how precocious and talented and special their child is and why they should be a model or famous. But I know the research around the experience of fame. The 3 stats that always get me are that it shortens the lifespan by 12 to 14 years, that it shows the same addictive properties as substance use and misuse, and that you're 3 times more likely to die by suicide if you're experiencing fame in the US compared to a non-famous person. So I know that information. The parents are just excited about getting their kid
the potential of
a famous career. But then on the other side of it, society ends up discarding these young performers once they have their tragic breakdown. And I want to be able to be like shouting from the rooftop, don't do it. And I've learned that like in no experience of my own has the person who's gotten through to me been the one who's just yelling at me, telling me when I'm doing wrong per se.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes I needed that just like stop moment, but I really needed some kind of guide who was willing to understand and empathize with that initial motivation and have the patience to have a conversation around it, to present the information, and then to also say, this is your choice to do with what you will from here on out.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that you protect your child. And also I cannot ultimately control your decision. And that's also, I think, why I focus on policy work, because I'm like, okay, if I can't trust the parents, then I need to get the structures in place.
Yes, exactly. Like yelling at somebody, telling them what to do is generally not going to be the thing for longevity. But if we can like make the systems that they are working in better so that they will benefit them, then like that's where like the real hard work is.
Right. But to be honest about like, how do I, dial down the overwhelm? And I'm still trying to figure that out, especially with this book campaign. It was just last night, I shared before we started, I think I'm feeling pretty depleted.
Yeah.
And I'm right on the verge of not being able to show up and have these productive conversations because my brain's going to be too scattered.
Yeah.
So let me know when you find a solution.
As a mom, people will be like, how do you do it? I'm like, I'm not. I will cry in 2 hours. I don't know. Someone's going to be crying in my house tonight.
Right.
But I think we're all just doing the best we can.
Right.
Yeah.
My expectation of what recovery looks like has shifted tremendously over the years. Before, I think I pictured recovery looking like someone who was mostly at ease. And now I think the image I see is like a handy person who has this tool belt that is just so stocked
and used because
that it's like, okay, today I need this and this and this. All right. I'm still tired at the end of the day, but at least I was able to repair a couple things here and spot the issue over here.
That is such a more accurate visual of what recovery looks like. It's not stoic and linen
not
and
for me,
clean. No, it is rough in your hands. Yeah, it is. It is all the stuff because you're using all the tools and you're helping other people.
Yeah, but you do get to feel the competence over time. That's nice.
Yeah.
To feel like, okay, this is hard, but I have gotten through this before. That starts to build a confidence and resilience that I don't think I would have had if I didn't have to practice the tools this many times.
You opened up about in your 20s, you survived the attack of rape, and that is something you bravely shared about. How did that experience intersect with some earlier traumas in your life that you had already lived through?
Well, until it happened to me, I didn't realize how common it is.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really eye-opening, that 1 in 3 women and also people who hold particular identities in particular regions,
Mm-hmm.
particular experiences are at higher risk of being targeted or experiencing this kind of violence.
Mm-hmm.
That was new information for me. And it's interesting how, the moment after it happened, and I had enough
Mm-hmm.
mental capacity to realize I should send a message. And I reached out to a friend. And the first thing she said is that she had also been through it, but had never shared it. And we had never talked about it. That it fundamentally changed my orientation to the world. And there's life before that and there's life after that. It felt like that big of a shift.
Mm-hmm.
And what, of course, no one should ever go through that. No one deserves to ever have power used over them in that way. I, in therapy, tried to think about, how does this connect to the story I'm telling myself about who I am in the world?
Mm-hmm.
And I wish it didn't have to be this way, but because that was such an obvious and clear violation of a physical boundary and safety, it brought clarity to my previous experiences that weren't that version of it.
Yeah.
But were examples of, let's say being on set and no conversations around consent and people, touching or interacting with your body in ways that are very invasive as a child.
Right.
Behaviors that I now understand to be grooming, that at the time, because as a kid I thought I was one of the adults, didn't see as an issue. All of these things started emerging with new insight. And again, I wish it didn't have to be prompted by this flagrant, foul experience. But it did become a moment where I said, never again. To the things that are within my control, I cannot allow this kind of boundary to be crossed. So while we unfortunately cannot always control these events, and I do not know if that will ever be a part of my experience again, I am going to do absolutely everything I can to set boundaries, however possible.
Yeah.
And I now believe people more in ways that I didn't realize I was doubting them. When I go back and listen to conversations of people sharing things that they had been through, whether it was related to this topic or something else, and my knee-jerk reaction was, okay, that sounds tough, but I'm glad you're doing better, instead of, oh, wow, that's deeply impactful.
Yeah.
Tell me more. Can I support? It's just a different response now.
Yeah. I understand that, because it's not like something we optionally really dig into before it happens a lot of times.
Right.
Unless it's something somebody else brings to you and you want to try and help as much as you can.
Right.
So yeah, I can imagine that being extremely life-shifting to the view and your experiences growing up in that environment.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I also had a chaotic household. And so I didn't grow up even having conversations about boundaries or consent. And it shifted everything.
Yeah. I feel like the conversation of boundaries, especially as a child in the industry, that has to be interesting, because it doesn't seem like there are many. Like you said, being treated like a commodity, that really does sound like it, when you just stand here, put this on, but without being asked, you're just being touched and told to do things.
And if a young person or a parent feels empowered to say no, oftentimes the fear is that it'll be construed as being difficult to work with.
Because there's somebody else that won't complain.
Right, exactly.
Which is a horrible way to think about things.
So I do think there's an opportunity here to talk to parents, guardians, and young artists about parental rights, about your autonomy as a human so that they also know specific ways they can address this on a set without the fear of retaliation. Like equip people to know, who do you go to if that happens? How do you surface this need in a way where you're not afraid of it ruining the scene or being fired from future opportunities? So, but you gotta get into the weeds of that particular space. And if you don't know, then yeah.
What freedoms do you have now that you're in recovery? And what are some dreams and goals you have for your future?
Ooh. Well, I noticed when you said the word freedom, my body immediately started swaying. And I think there's a former rigidity that has been able to relax, not just in how I design the schedule of the day, but also in my expectations of myself. It's like perfectionism to, okay, I'm semi-well adjusted and I'm going to name a book after it, and being like, not actually that scared of saying, I have flaws and I have some strengths. Don't we all? I think freedom has also been releasing all these pressures around specialness, exceptionalism, success, achievement, and being like, actually, I'm so grateful that I am fundamentally so ordinary. I am a human being who is just trying to make sense of the world. That's been really liberating. And I think more recently, over the last 5 years, the initial phases of recovery were very much, secure your own oxygen mask before trying to help others. And it was very much like pretty self-focused, individualized. And now when I think of healing, when I think of well-being, when I think of liberation, it's very much a collectivist lens. And it's like, wait a second, if I'm doing well, but you're not doing well, then are we actually doing well? No, I'm only as healthy as the community is healthy. And I think that's been a key missing variable in a lot of Western recovery spaces that are so individualized that we take the person out of the context, out of the culture, out of what's happening in their environment, instead of saying like, oh no, we gotta look out for every component here and
take
empower
account
everyone.
For the environment.
Yes. So I think freedom now is like, it's tied up in community empowerment.
Oh, I love that. Because a lot of times when dealing with mental health, substance use, anything that keeps that like mean brain part on, it'll tell you be by yourself. You're better by yourself. Stay introspective. Don't open up. We'll figure this out. I'll be super mean about it, but we'll figure it out. No, it's community is literally the key.
Ooh, I relate a lot to that. Like, yes, I am notoriously the lone wolf, and once I'm fixed, then I'll reemerge. But until then, let me go take care of everything privately.
Seriously.
The silly shame.
That never works out for me.
Yeah, I know.
Once I finally am like, hey, I'm kind of struggling. They're like, oh, what can I do? It's past that point. You're just going to have to do something. And hope
Yeah, actually, I think another part of the freedom in this chapter is now, before, when I would have what some might consider setbacks or, making the choice you really didn't want to make anymore. Those used to feel pretty like life or death. It really kind of felt like the end of the world each time. And now, even though it's been a very nonlinear, winding road, I'm still here. I've still somehow made it through 100% of those hard days. And it feels a little less intense. When I fumble, and I do often, I can now just be like, all right, get up and approach the next play as best as you can.
Being kinder to yourself.
Yeah. And needing it for my own sanity, to not harp on it in such an intense.
Ruminate and turn everything, just the looping thoughts. Yeah.
Right. We love the
Obliviate, get them out of there. What's one thing you wish people understood about being a child star and mental health?
The thing that comes to mind, I spoke a little bit earlier about the dissonance of the before and after of being first enchanted by the idea and then gawking at the children who seemingly fail at following through. I would love for us to repair that cognitive dissonance where we can, on the one hand, be imbibing this kind of poisonous idea, knowing that fame actually leads to poorer health outcomes, so it really is, it's not just positive results. And on the other hand, sometimes only blaming the young person and only seeing them as, an entitled or reckless person who has access to everything and somehow still has issues.
It's like, then we should really be asking the question.
Right. So I think maybe it's, being open to learning more information about what else is going on that we aren't privy to as viewers on the outside.
Yeah.
And allowing that curiosity to then shift your perspective. And I mean, if you want a case study, absolutely read Semi-Well-Adjusted. That should give you a very clear example.
It was very clear example. I was just like, oh my gosh. And just like thing by thing by thing.
Right. And then I would say after that component, then explore in your own life the way that some of these same cultural myths around success and being exceptional have shaped your own path. Whether you were the quote unquote chosen one for a certain thing, or you were not the quote unquote chosen one, it still had an impact on your life, but it all relates to these myths that drive our society. And I just want to dispel these myths. I'm like, nope, pierce through the illusion.
If you could tell your 9-year-old self one thing about recovery, what would it be?
About recovery? I might share that each human has their own unique operating system, and their mind, their body, their nervous system have its own manual. And the sooner you get to know how your mind and body operate, the sooner you can start to find the tools that help you manage all the moments in life. I really wish someone would have presented some tools.
I wish I could tell my 9-year-old self that too, because I think all she did was try and be like everybody else or think that every thought she had was weird and wrong.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, those poor babies.
I know. It's hard growing up.
It is.
It's so complicated. Yeah.
Oh, I think the best we can do is just try and make safer spaces for the kids now.
Yeah. And to be those attuned presences where you're not just saying like, okay, I'm dismissing whatever feeling you just shared with me, but taking a moment to say, oh, wow, it sounds challenging what you're going through.
Yes.
And now what might be helpful for coping.
Exactly. We needed those people, and to have the adults in our lives like say something like that, like it's not the biggest thing. What do you mean? I'm 10. This is the biggest thing. This is my whole entire world. It's consuming.
Right.
Somebody like listen and take it seriously.
Yeah.
What do you say to someone who feels like their trauma makes them too broken?
Oh, I'll try to keep this short because I could really go
on and on and on and on.
I could go down a long road with this. All I'll start with is I've noticed that the concept of being broken is a story that's embedded in a lot of aspects of society. Diet and fitness culture usually see the body as having something wrong with it because you got to fix it with the latest product. Sometimes certain practices in organized religion can see the body as broken or sinful in a way where it can lead to viewing your relationship to your body as something to be subdued or modified, purified, etc. And I'm not judging that experience, just noticing the underlying paradigm there. It can also be something we see in marketing and consumerism tactics where why would we need to buy that new thing if we were actually content and okay?
Right.
So ultimately, when I think about this idea of being broken, it reminds me that at its core, there's a story there, and that story originated somewhere. And maybe it started in your household. Maybe it started seemingly between you yourself in your own space. Maybe it was some of these other threads in society. And I might just become curious around like, at what age did this idea come online? And where did I inherit this idea?
Yeah.
And after you do that, then maybe I might ask, so what resistance do you have? What resistance comes up when you think about trying a different story? And then that resistance is probably maybe an area where we can lean into slowly but surely to let some of those walls come down so that when you actually want to change the story, you don't just feel like you're trying to pretend to switch, but you actually are kind of making
just happening.
Yes, like a deeper shift overall.
Yeah. So imagine someone's listening to this and they're like, okay, that's like super great for them. But like, what about me? How am I supposed to make this like applicable for me? What are some of the parallels? I mean, I see it. What are some of the parallels with your story and people in recovery and people contemplating recovery in general?
What ones do you see?
I mean, okay. So let's see here. Just when I hear you talk about anything with you being a child star, I don't think that you need to be a celebrity as a star to understand what it's like to want to conform and make people around you happy, but to not have the adults around you providing those tools to do it in like a healthy way. Finding that good balance. Like we can go 100, but we don't need to do that. You don't need to push your body. You don't need to be a celebrity to do that. That's something that we all do. I push myself way too far thinking that I need to carry the weight of my family and everything. Like I'm some big important person in this world that if I don't do the thing, everything's going to crumble around me. And I heard that with you as a child. I'm like, there's so many parallels with your story and just anybody in general.
Thank you for that insight. Yeah, that reflection, it does resonate. And if I were to build off of that, I might say writing a memoir in a formal way is really just the process that you undergo in recovery when you explore the stories that you've believed about yourself, what's possible for your future, the way the world works. And at some point, if and when you're ready to write a different story, to live into a different story, there's going to be a period of uncertainty. You're really not necessarily going to know what the end goal is or how you'll look when you get there and feel. So I think there's an invitation, if you want to take it in your recovery journey, to embrace the uncertainty and to find whatever tools. I know we use tools a lot, but I have needed tools.
Yeah.
I really have to manage that uncertainty, to manage the discomfort of not knowing so that you can at least continue forward until you see some clarity. I do think there is, at least in my case, quite a dark night of the soul period where you're like, everything that held my life together, even if it wasn't healthy, is now kind of falling apart while I look for a replacement home to live in. And I think it can be really tempting to just try to jump to the next structure or to try and go back, cling to the one that you know. And sometimes we are going to feel a bit like we're floating in a liminal space until we practice a tool, flex a muscle, see an idea, piece together a new normal for ourselves. So stories are really powerful.
Yes, they are.
And I'm trying to let go of some stories still. For me, writing it out in a memoir is a step toward that, of being like, all right, ultimately, even though these things happen and this is how I remember them happening, it was still a story about how it all went down. And I don't want to have that be my only story while I'm here. So, hopefully if that resonates with someone, you feel the invitation to shift into truly a new experience and story for yourself.
Oh, that's so beautiful, honestly. And sharing stories, I think, takes it back to the beginning. This is how we can beat these things. This is how we build community. This is how people are able to go through their journeys in recovery and whatever it is, sharing your story. Don't keep stuff bottled in.
Yeah. It's also an ancient, natural human response we have that helps us close the loop on certain things that have been traumatizing or painful.
Right.
Sharing the story and making sure, as my supervisor says, if someone starts telling you the story, but they keep getting stuck and they don't close the loop on letting you know, ultimately, eventually things were okay, that can just keep the body in that heightened state of suspense. So if you're going to tell your story, close that loop.
Close the loop.
Get to the end where it was okay again, even if just for a moment.
Yes.
And focus on moving forward from there.
What is your loop closing right now? And the story's not over.
Ooh.
It's just kind of getting started on a new path. But how would you close this loop here? If there's something you could say to somebody out there that would help encourage them?
I appreciate this question because I am realizing that for the last 3 months, being on this book campaign, marketing campaign, while also running a mental health company, wearing all the hats, it's been really hard for me to see any kind of joy in it. It's felt purpose-driven. But joy has felt pretty hard to find amid just also everything happening in the world. So I'm grateful for this question because there's something beautiful about this moment, and that, just on the other side of camera is my sister. And I get to do some of this journey with her now after a lifetime when our family really didn't talk and interact much in this way. So there are some bright spots. And though I'm prone to just looking at the stress, thank you for reminding me, like, oh, there are some other beautiful loops closing that were once really painful events, and now there's evidence of love and repair and safety together.
And she comes back into your story in a really powerful way. That's a sister for you. Yes. And we'll learn more about that when we get to chat with her. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you so much for semi-well-adjusted, despite literally everything. And can you tell our listeners where they can find you, your socials, where they can buy your book?
Yes, the book is available to read or to listen to wherever books are sold. And you can follow me at Alyson Stoner, and the company at Movement Genius. Come hang out with us.
This has been a wonderful conversation. I can't thank you enough for this. And thank you for sharing everything and your vulnerability with us here.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us today. And I'll see you next time.